Well, hello everyone. We are back again, and continuing our summit today. We've been lucky to be blessed by awesome, and amazing speakers. And we're moving on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Tonya Hofmann, the CEO and founder of Public Speakers Association, and she happens to be one of my mentors. And Tanya, I appreciate you so much. So in her talk today, she's going to be talking about creating your own TV show. That's right, creating your own TV show, which is something that, we talk about now and technology and how to do marketing, how to get visibility and how to get people to get to know what you do. Having a video is really ranked number one. So today she's going to be talking about how having your own TV show can help you in your business, how it can help you market yourself and your product and services better. So without further ado, I am introducing to the stage Tonya Hofmann. Tonya, you there?
Yes. Hello, everyone. And thank you, Christy. I'm so excited to be here. I apologize for not being on screen because this would be perfect to show stuff. But sometimes things just happen and our internet is out. So we've been kind of dealing with it. So let's get going because you don't really care what my internet is doing. So when you start looking at the world to get your message out there, to find new clients, to build influence, to create momentum for everything that you're doing, the easiest way to do that is to have a TV show. Now, a lot of people start off with podcasting or something along those lines. And I'm going to suggest that that's good if you need to, but what we need to do is move you into video. And it may be uncomfortable being on video at first. And what I'm going to tell you to do is just get over it. One of the things that I've known as I've gone through this process is there's nothing more effective than for people to see your eyes. There's something amazing about connecting to you, to your personality. When I first started, I was getting over being an introvert. And if we were on screen, I could show you a picture, but you just imagine me as an introvert. I was so shy. And one of the things that really bothered me about myself was my voice. As a lot of people, we hear ourselves and cringe. And that was me. And I decided that I needed to get myself out there and get over the issue with my voice. So I decided to do AM radio. Now, it aired in Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio. So I had about 20,000 listeners on this AM station. But it was incredibly expensive. So it was about $800 a month for this spot that was for 30 minutes. And at the time, I owned a business networking group organization that was statewide. So I would bring on guests. And at first, I really had a hard time getting people even to listen to the show. So I started to then look around and bring on some kind of celebrity guests. And it was back in 2006. And it was an election season. So I started bringing on different people running for office. So that was really a lot of fun. And one of the things that shocked me was the very first day that I walked into the studio with the giant boom mics, separating myself and my husband because he was also had this beautiful radio voice. And I expected him to do most of the talking, because again, in my head, who would want to hear me? And the producer looked at me and he goes, "Okay, Tonya, you're going to be the voice of the show and then your husband's going to be your backup." And I'm "No, that is not what we agreed upon." And he's like, "But you have a unique voice. People will remember it." So it taught me a whole lot about getting over my fears. Even about the guests coming on, because I had people that were even too afraid to be on this AM radio you know, but it was going to help their business, you know, and you just never knew who was listening. So 4 months, we realized it just wasn't working well enough. So in our brilliance, you know, back then, I decided, well, maybe FM is where we need to go. So we spent even more money, went to FM, and it didn't really produce anything much more than what, you know, I had happen on the other end. Now, I would go to networking events and things, and I would start talking to people, and you sound so familiar. And once they realized that I was the host of the show, I actually found out that people actually did listen to it. But it didn't produce income. It didn't produce results for my business. So about that time, and this is about 2007, I looked at, well, where else could I go? What else could I do? So I went to Blog Talk Radio. And I went to a platform that built up to about 1 million listeners. Now, that sounds really good, right? You're like, ooh, 1 million listeners. That's much better than 20,000, right? But it still did not produce any results. I was on that platform for about a year, and I just still never got really any results from even people signing up for my newsletter. But I certainly didn't get any results for, you know, a new client. So about that time, the idea of doing a TV show online, not in a studio, not on ABC or even a side channel, but actually on the internet started to surface. And I was on Natalie Ledwell's TV show, which was just internet-based. And immediately I got a client. And I was like, oh. So once I realized that it had such a huge impact, I then switched around and I canceled my Blog Talk. So people thought I was crazy because I went from Blog Talk to YouTube. So I went from 1 million people to 0. But I can tell you it was the most important and the best thing I did for my business. So let's talk about a couple different things to think about when you're doing your own TV show. First of all, it gives you an ability to leverage. Now, for most people, that is the number one hardest thing to do, is to have something to leverage in their business to create more momentum. So when you meet somebody at a networking group, at a conference, you know, wherever you're at, and, you know, say you meet Christy, and you're like, oh my gosh, Christy, you're so cool, it's so amazing, oh my gosh. And you're just like, her people would be an amazing connection for me. Her peeps, the people who love her and part of her community on social media, email marketing, those are the people that I would love to get in front of. Well, without some way to leverage an experience, it's hard to get in front of Christy. So the way you do that is you have a show for her to be on. Now, when she's on your show, she tells her group about it, right? Just like even this event, right? I push out to my list. So 60,000 people get to see about Christy and that I'm doing something with her. Same thing the other direction. So for you to put on your own TV show gives you an ability to have someone on your show and get in front of their people. Now, because you are there and they can see you, people trust you faster. Also, when they see someone that they love, right? So you want Christy on your show, people love her. Because they already love her and you have her on your platform, that means that all of her people trust you because she trusts you enough to be on your platform. So it's also an instant way to warm up new potential clients. Or, again, more influence for connections to other people. So the amazing part of having a TV show is that you can then bring people on to help you build your database, help bring people in that warms you up immediately to somebody else's list, so that that list goes, oh my gosh, I really need to know you. So you looked at, now I know how to leverage. Now I know how to utilize other people's people. How do you turn people into sales from a TV show? Or how do you get them to do something, call to action? So maybe you want them to follow you on Facebook. Maybe you need help growing your Facebook group, or just growing your profile of your friends on Facebook. Maybe you want to focus on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. Maybe you want a bigger email list, right? All of those things are important. So you can focus and grow each one of those by using an ability to take TV and have a call to action for a particular opportunity. Even sales. Now, a lot of times people try to sell on their show, and you have to be careful warming them up. Especially if it's new people, a lot of people just go straight in for the sale. I've got this thing coming up. I want you to buy my coaching package, right? It's better to do a lead generation, right? A call to action where they're going to get something for free. So then you would have them give a free strategy session with you. Or again, opt into a group that they can be a part of on Facebook or LinkedIn. So what can they do that continues to keep you in front of them? That's such a better way of doing it. Now you can kind of mention something that's coming up, right? But you've got to have some way for them to take advantage. If you do offer something, make sure it's a huge promotion, because again, you've got to move them from, oh, this person's really fun, to, oh, that's a great deal. Yeah, I'm going to take advantage of that. So whatever it is for you, really look at how you're going to move the people on your show over to you. Now, there's a couple of things that people do that mess up their shows, where people just kind of like, oh, I really don't want to watch this show. Because it's important and it's imperative that people watch the show, they watch it all the way through, and then they comment on it. Okay? That's so that Google has the ability to say, oh, this is something that's being watched. YouTube then goes, wow, people are wanting to watch this all the way through, so they start pulling it in when people, have keyword searches. But you really have to look at what are you wanting them to do during the show. First of all, it has to be a focus of your guest. Because again, you're leveraging this opportunity. And it's also about making that guest love you. So sometimes people get on and they talk way too much. If you're going to say something about your business, and yes, I suggest that you do, short and sweet. So if you watch one of my shows, then I start off, welcome everyone, say hello to my guests, say a really quick, short intro about Public Speakers Association. Usually, oh, I know that you want to go out there and change the world from the front of the room, and I want to help you do that. So go over and let's schedule a call to talk today so I can see how I can help you. Go to, and then I give them the website, right? Public Speakers, with an S, Association, all spelled out, .com. And down at the bottom, you'll see my calendar that pops up, and you just choose what works for you. I give them instructions. I say it very slow, because you got to remember that they probably don't have a pen and a paper next to them. So say it slow. Say, anytime you do a website, say it again, and then give them some type of call to action. Now, I really love the little pop-up calendar ever since I started using Visita, and if anyone needs any help with that, let me know. It has been a life changer, really has. So it gives people an opportunity to have a conversation with me. So this is a great way for you to build your clientele, but it has to be short and sweet. You say that it needs to be under, 30 seconds is good. A minute is like max. And then switch it back over and get back to your guest. Now, one of the things that you look at too is, kind of creating some momentum for yourself. And one of the things that you need to do is not only say hello to your guest, and have them, but you have to have a nice balance when you're talking to them. So it's kind of like dancing. You want to be the lead sometimes, and then you want to switch around and let the other person lead. So make sure that, come on over. Make sure that when you start realizing the magnitude that people have in their knowledge, why wouldn't you want to showcase? Because what you're doing is showcasing that you have some pretty awesome friends, that you have some connections that will blow people away. So why wouldn't you want to do that? So when you start looking at the differences in the people you bring on, and what will make the biggest difference in their life, showcase them. Give them the opportunity to say something about themselves. Because this is your point, is to give you an opportunity to make a difference in someone's life. If you are, because a lot of times people will go and check out your TV show before they come on, right? Well, they don't want to go and see that it's the me show. Because I've certainly been on shows where the person wouldn't stop talking, right? And I was like, okay, am I a guest or am I filler? I don't know what I'm here for. Because you're just like, is that person ever going to stop talking? And we've all heard it. Or the other direction, where you're a guest and you answer everything in one-word sentences. Oh, yes. Right? Chrissy's laughing. So, a lot of times too, you don't want, as a guest, you don't want to take and hog the whole show. I've had literally people start talking after I introduce them, and they think it's a webinar where they're the star. And so you really have to look at, it's a balance. So you got to get used to pausing. So say they ask you a question. Okay, this is both directions. I'm kind of giving you some hints for being a guest as well. So as a host, you would ask your question, and then it's a dance. So that person gives you, 2, 3, 4 sentences about whatever you just asked them. And then it switches back over to you, and you ask another question. Now, what you want to do as a host is you don't want to just be the question asker, right? You don't want to just be the person just asking questions. You want to also show people that you're brilliant as well. Okay? Now, if the person is on talking about something you really don't know anything about, well, then that's really awesome as well, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, tell me more, right? Because you're interacting. You're not just ask a question, get an answer, ask a question, get an answer, which is the way most people do their shows. You want it to be more conversational. People nowadays want to see real conversation, as if you're really learning from somebody new. Because then you're engaged. You've got this excitement that you're wanting to learn from somebody. So say if Chrissy's on your show and she's, digging into how people should be more confident and, growing their business by getting over some, issues that they have that's making them not confident. Okay, you should be like all into that. And you're like, oh, that's so cool. This happens. And you can actually ask your guest questions that aren't the ones that they asked you. Because usually when people, You get your 5 questions. Here, ask me. What would you like me to ask you? People design them so that they can sell your audience. And what happens then is that people just tune out. They can feel it. They can feel it coming. If it's too staged and not, organic in nature, people won't usually stick around. So take that opportunity when you're interviewing people. Think about what would you be curious about. So say if someone's, Katrina Saw was on this program, and she's got, good gracious, she can talk to you about anything, right? But pick something and then just dive into it. And I love it when my guests know something that I've been wanting to know about. Because I'm going to usually ask the questions that everybody else would want to ask that person. And when you've got them on a radio show, they usually answer, right? So it's also free coaching for yourself. But you get really some great responses when you ask people the things that you're curious about. Because they can see it in your voice, or they can hear it in your voice. They can see it in your eyes, in your expressions. Because remember, this is TV. This is, on video. So the more you're engaged, the more things will explode for you. Now, let's briefly talk about one reality. If you try to be perfect, you will not have anyone follow you. Yes, I said it. If you try to be perfect and make sure that you have the perfect outfit on and the perfect backdrop and the perfect this and your voice is perfect and da-da-da-da, right? Then people will tune out. Because again, because of YouTube and because of all the live video now, people want to see real people. Now, that doesn't mean show up in your bunny slippers, unless they can't see them. But you know what I mean. You want to look the part. I'm not a big fan of people being so casual that you're like, is that person really a business person? Okay. Now, one of the other things to keep in mind is it's great when things go wrong, because again, it shows people that they could be just like you, that they don't have to be this perfect person they think you are. The best one, really the best shows I've ever had, and actually the ones I make usually the most money off of, is when something crazy happens. Like one time I was recording, and I have a very sweet kitty cat. Her name is Chai Chai, and she's a big fluffy gray kitty cat. And I was doing this, and suddenly she just jumped up on top of the desk, and her little body and little tail was going right across the screen because she was walking across, where the camera was. So I could have stopped and we could have redone it, or edited it out. Oh my gosh, I don't edit anything. But I left it in. And I had so many responses. I've got a kitty cat too. Oh, your kitty cat looks so sweet. Because I grabbed her and made her say hello to everybody, right? I took the moment that was like, oh no, kitty cat time, and I made it something fun. And because I made it something fun and interactive, right, then people got to see a part of me that they don't normally get to see. Sometimes we try to be too much of business people. And we forget that people also need to know that you're human and you have a life. I was talking to a lady the other day, and I mentioned something on the show about needing to go get my son's haircut. And she's like, what? You have children? I thought someone like you, has to be, single with no husband and children and no animals. And I'm like, well, that sounds really sterile. I said, no, I got a life like everybody else. It's imperfect. I mean, look at today. The internet is out. I would totally have rocked having the video on, but darn it, you just go with the flow. So the more imperfect you are, the more people can connect to you. That doesn't mean you show up, in a swimsuit. Unless, of course, you're trying to sell people, on pool products. Right? If that makes sense. Yeah, totally. I knew this guy that would wear a 3-piece suit, and he was a construction guy. It was too much. So sometimes your look needs to fit also the clientele you're going after. So he never looked like he was a construction guy. So people had a really tough time with him owning a construction company because of the way he looked. So take that in consideration. If you're, who is your audience? What would they want to look at? What would they want to see you as? Because, it's important to keep those kind of things in mind as well. And really some of the best moments were, just kind of crazy things that happened. One of my clients, one of my guests on my show, her doorbell started ringing, and her dog was barking like crazy, like, whose dog doesn't do that? But it wouldn't stop. The person kept ringing it, and she's like, oh my gosh. So she picked up her laptop that she was filming on, and she's literally walking through her house to the front door, to the guy that was at the front door, signing for a package. I mean, it was kind of the craziest thing. But we laughed, and people still talk to me about that. So you're wanting to warm up your crowd and your guests. Now, remember that your guests are going to be a little bit nervous when they're coming onto your show. Depending on how many that they've done, they may have not done very many shows. But even then, they're not quite sure what to expect. So before you start recording, or if you're going to do it live, maybe you're going to do a Facebook Live on Be Live or just on Facebook, then have them show up a little bit early. Because what you're wanting to do is get them to laugh, calm their nerves before you go live or before you start recording. Tell them how everything's going to flow. At the end, I always do some type of call to action for the guest. And I tell them then that's their time to kind of shine and let people know. Now, also, because not everybody will think about it, remind them, hey, before we start, at the end, you get to offer, some type of lead generation or some type of offer. Do you have something? And then find out what it is. That way you as the host can go, oh, and, Chrissy's going to give away, something special at the end, so stick around. Or, oh, Chrissy's ready to give you something special. So that way you can actually say that because you know that she's about to do that. I used to not do that, and then people would be like, oh, I'd catch them off guard, and they hadn't had something prepared. So just, that way at the beginning you'll know to either say it or not. And then, of course, wind it up with a great saying, something that's kind of you, something that kind of fits with the show. And that way the person who is watching the show and also your guests kind of see that it's about to end. Now, the length of the show is important, and you have to really think through that process. Most of the time, you want it to be definitely under 30 minutes. I went from an hour to 45 to 30, but it's so hard to get people to watch it for that long. So now my shows are between 10 and 15 minutes. It's enough for the guest to feel like they really got some value out of the show, that they got a chance to really connect, but not so long as people get bored. Now, if it's going really well and like you're having the best time, it could go further. It could be longer, but try to keep it shorter than longer. If you're monologuing, meaning you're just the person giving the information, you don't have any guests, because that's also good to do ever so often, then again, shorter the better. So I hope that was some great information for you today, some things for you to go, that was good. Hopefully you just go and do it, okay? Now, sometimes the technical stuff kind of gets people bogged down. Sometimes how do I find the guest? And there's a lot of like how-tos. I do have a whole, like a 5-video series, several hours long, of how to do everything. And I've got it super cheap. It's like $97. So if you go to Tonya, Tonya, Hofmann, and remember that my husband's family doesn't know how to spell their last name right. So it's 1 S and 2 N. So Hof like Frank, but one of them, I know you're going to want to write 2, but just write 1, MANN, so NancyNancy.com, TonyaHoffman.com, and it's right down towards the bottom. So thank y'all for having me here today. I've had a blast. I adore Christy. I'm so excited that everyone here is part of her community, and I hope to chat with each one of you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Tonya. I appreciate it. And audience, I hope you're able to take her on that offer. I appreciate it. Tonya, you can go ahead and